Hello friends, so let us continue our discussion on understanding the high temperature failure of the material. So we are focusing on the precursor that leads to the high temperature failure of the material, that is the formation of stable cavities. So these cavities, they act as the precursor for the high temperature failure of the material, and in the high temperature failure of the material we are considering the prevalent one, that is the intergranular failure. The reason at the beginning of every lecture I am repeating these precepts is because depending on the failure that we are focusing, the factors governing it would vary, and that is the reason when we are at the very preface, when we confine ourselves to intergranular failure, we can bring about the specific factors that govern the intergranular failure. So we are considering how these stable cavities, they influence this intergranular failure, particularly the rate at which these stable cavities influence or govern the intergranular failure, because ultimately we are interested in the rate at which the material fails at high temperature. Now these cavities, they are formed, or they can form either at the grain boundary or along the grain boundary or at the triple junction, and so far what we have been considering is the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries. Now in the previous lecture what we saw is the rate at which these cavities form along the grain boundaries. We saw there are several factors that govern the rate at which these cavities form along the grain boundaries. So these factors are largely governed by two parameters, that is the number of critical cavities that are already present along the grain boundaries and the rate at which the vacancies are observed by these critical cavities. Now the way we formulate the overall expression for the rate at which the stable cavities are formed is, we begin by considering the presence of the critical cavities, and we allow the critical cavities to grow into the supercritical cavities, and the growth of the critical to supercritical cavities is achieved by the absorption of vacancies. So therefore the rate of formation of supercritical or stable cavities is governed by the combination of existing number of critical vacancies and the rate at which the vacancies are observed. So this factor here governs the existing number of vacancies, and this factor here, or rather existing number of critical cavities, that is characterized by this relation. So R is the size of the cavity and C is the critical size, and the beta here is the proportionality constant. It is the rate at which vacancies are absorbed by the cavities. Now if you consider individual factors that govern the rate or the nucleation rate of the supercritical cavities, again we are confining to the supercritical cavities, because the supercritical cavities that are characterized by this relation R is greater than RC. So we are confined with these supercritical cavities because it is these cavities that translate into the formation of crack, which ultimately leads to the failure of the material. So the nucleation rate of these supercritical cavities, if you consider the individual factors, we have the diffusivity along the grain boundary, of course the usual suspects of stress and temperature. Then if you consider the number of critical cavities that are already present in the system, then you have the number of favorable sites. So this number of favorable sites is, again, it is since we are considering the formation of cavities along the grain boundaries, it is governed by the grain size. And if you consider these factors here, they influence the overall nucleation rate of the stable cavities either directly or by influencing the number of vacancies that are present. And since we are largely focusing on the translation of a critical cavity to a stable or supercritical cavity by the absorption of the vacancies along the grain boundaries, the grain boundary diffusivity directly relates to the, or directly governs the nucleation rate of the staple or supercritical cavities. Now again, when we are talking about nucleation rate, we are not talking about the nucleation of directly a supercritical or directly a stable cavity. We are talking about the translation of or the transformation of a critical cavity to a supercritical cavity. So this is essentially what we are considering when we express the nucleation rate in these terms. So we are not talking about formation of or direct formation of a supercritical cavity, but rather the transformation of a critical cavity to a supercritical cavity through the absorption of vacancies, and that is the reason why we have an expression of this form. And these are the factors that govern either directly or indirectly the rate at which the stable or supercritical cavities form. Now, one of the factors that I missed out here is the radius of the cavity and or the critical cavity, and this radius, it influences the nucleation rate through the surface it renders, because only when you have a surface that could accommodate the vacancies that move into the cavities, you have the growth of the critical cavities to the supercritical cavities. So these are the factors that govern the nucleation rate of the supercritical cavities. We are confining ourselves, or we are largely focusing on the supercritical cavities, and these are the factors that govern the nucleation rate of the supercritical cavities. Now, in the previous lecture we saw it is just not one cavity that leads to the ultimate failure of the material. So we need to have several cavities, and for several cavities we need to have different nucleation events, and we saw that there is a specific nucleation rate that we can calculate based on these combination of the factors. Now, once you have the supercritical cavities, it alone will not lead to the ultimate failure of the material. We need to have the growth of these cavities, and that is what we will be considering in this lecture. So what we will be seeing here is, or considering in this lecture, is the growth of the supercritical cavities or stable cavities, the formation of which we saw in the previous lecture. So now we defined the nucleation rate as the transformation of critical cavities to supercritical cavities. So what we are essentially considering is the growth of the critical cavities even while we are talking about the nucleation rate. So let me repeat, we did not consider the nucleation rate as the rate at which the supercritical cavities form. Instead, we considered the nucleation rate as the rate at which the critical cavity transform into supercritical cavity. So in there itself we have considered to a certain amount the growth of the cavities. Now that growth was just the translation of critical to supercritical. How in this lecture what we will be considering is the overall growth of the supercritical cavity. So in the nucleation we have just considered the transformation of critical to supercritical, and here we will be considering the growth of the stable cavities. Now for the initial growth or for the transformation of the critical to supercritical cavities or to critical to stable cavities, the event that led to this translation is the migration of vacancies. So supposing you have a cavity, a critical cavity along the grain boundary. So this is our grain boundary and this is the critical cavity. So this critical cavity is denoted by this or characterized by this relation, and when you have the vacancies that move towards this cavity and this cavity absorbs this vacancy, then in that case what happens is the critical cavity increases in size, and the new size will be or can be expressed in this manner, and that means the cavity has transformed into a supercritical cavity. And for this translation, that is from critical to supercritical cavity, the amount of vacancies that are required is rather minimal when you compare to the overall growth of the cavities. So when you compare the translation of critical to supercritical cavity to the overall growth of the formed or newly formed supercritical cavity, the amount of vacancies or the migration of vacancies that is required for the translation of critical to supercritical is relatively minimal, and that is the reason why we have not considered this translation of critical to supercritical cavities as growth, but rather as the nucleation. So it is the difference in the amount of vacancies that is required to bring about the change, that is required to translate a critical to supercritical cavity, is the reason why we have considered the formation of supercritical cavity from the existing critical cavity as the nucleation. Now what we are considering is the growth of the stable or supercritical cavity. So we already have a stable cavity and we want this stable cavity to grow in order to lead to the formation of cracks. For this you need an increased amount of vacancies migration. So when you compare it to the translation of critical to stable cavities, the amount of vacancies that are required for the growth of the cavities is significantly higher. So we need to consider how such increased amount of vacancy migration can be achieved, because once we have that parameter, then we will be able to understand the factors governing the growth of the cavities. So the first distinction is we have distinguished ourselves from the nucleation of the stable or supercritical cavities from the growth of the stable cavities or the supercritical cavities. The growth of the stable cavities, they require an increased amount of vacancy migration when compared to the translation of critical to supercritical cavities. Now when you talk about the migration of vacancies, or for that matter the migration of any component in a polycrystalline or in a multi-component system, when you talk about a component moving from one area to another area, let us confine ourselves to this discussion. When you want to have the vacancies migrating from one area to another area, or one section of the system to another section of the system, or one area of the grain boundary, since we are confined to the grain boundary migration of the vacancies, so one area of the grain boundary to another area of the grain boundary, the factor that governs this migration of vacancies can be quantified as, or can be expressed by considering the chemical potential of the vacancies. So if you look or consider or recollect the fundamental description of the chemical potential is expressed as the change in the free energy of the system with the change in the number of components. So if you consider V as the vacancies, the chemical potential of the vacancies is nothing but the change in the free energy of the system when there is a change in the number of vacancies. So we saw that with temperature and with increase in temperature, or with change in temperature and with change in the stress, there is a change in the number of vacancies. So once you have a change in the number of vacancies, then the chemical potential of the vacancies in that system changes. So this difference in the chemical potential, to put it more specifically, it is the gradient of the chemical potential of vacancies that governs the migration of the vacancies. So for the growth of the supercritical cavity, we need migration of vacancies towards it, and this migration of vacancies is governed by the gradient in the chemical potential. Now the gradient in the chemical potential is introduced by the change in the number of vacancies. So therefore the change in the number of vacancies ultimately leads to the gradient in the chemical potential, which ultimately leads to the migration of vacancies towards the cavity. Now let us consider what are the factors that govern or that introduces this gradient in the chemical potential that favors the growth of the cavities. We are focusing on the gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies that favors the growth of the cavities, not any chemical potential of any component, but rather the chemical potential of vacancies along the grain boundary, and the gradient that is introduced in this chemical potential, or to put it simply, the difference in the chemical potential of the vacancies along the grain boundary, that energetically favors its migration towards the cavity so that the cavities would grow. So we will now consider the factors that govern the formation of a difference in the chemical potential along the grain boundaries. Now we saw based on this description, we can state that the chemical potential of the vacancies is governed by the number of vacancies. Now in the general sense, the number of vacancies are governed by temperature and stress. Now the stress, or rather the temperature, is a constant during the creep testing, and also is the stress. However, even though when you have a stress, or when you assume the stress to be constant in a polycrystalline material, the stress does not act in the similar manner in all the grains, or in all the section of the grains. The stress does not act in the similar manner. This we saw when we considered the diffusion creep mechanism, meaning if you have a creep testing setup and you have fixed both the temperature and the stress, for the given temperature the number of vacancy is constant, and despite the material being polycrystalline in nature, the temperature is uniform all through the material, and therefore the number of vacancies due to the temperature, they are definitively coupled. So therefore you cannot have a sudden change in the number of vacancies, or a local change in the number of vacancies because of the temperature. So if you have a polycrystalline system, since the temperature is uniform all through the polycrystalline system, the number of vacancies due to the temperature will also be equal all through the system. However, when you consider stress, supposing you have a simple grain like this, and in this grain the tensile load is acting in this direction, because so assume that you are considering just a uniaxial tensile load, and if the tensile load is acting along this direction, due to the Poisson's effect, what you would have is a compressive load that is acting in this direction. So what ultimately would happen is the vacancies, because of the tensile load, will be higher in this region, and because of the compressive load, the vacancies in this region will be lower. So this difference in the number of vacancies, depending on the position that you consider in the polycrystalline system, changes the chemical potential of the vacancies. Again, the chemical potential of the vacancies is governed by the number of vacancies, and when you have a system that is experiencing uniaxial tension, you have the number of vacancy, or the number of vacancies changes depending on the stress. Along the tensile loading direction, the number of vacancy increases because the tensile load decreases the energy required for the formation of vacancies. Therefore, along the tensile loading direction, the number of vacancies is increased. On the other hand, when you have a region which experiences compressive load, in this region the energy required for the formation of vacancy is increased. Therefore, the number of vacancies will be considerably reduced. So therefore, this number of vacancy becomes dependent on the position. So if x should be a vector notation, but yeah. So depending on the position that you consider within a material, the number of vacancies vary, since the chemical potential of the vacancies depends on the number of vacancy. It means the chemical potential of the vacancies also vary depending on the position, and this dependence is due to the difference in the stress that is acting within the material. Now, when you consider a polycrystalline material at constant temperature, temperature is uniform, and therefore you have a constant number of vacancies all throughout. However, on the other hand, if you consider the stress that is acting within the material, it is not uniform, it varies, and therefore you have a different number of, or the number of vacancies is different in different regions, and because of the difference in the number of vacancies, you have the difference in the chemical potential. And once you have a difference in the chemical potential, what essentially happens is that you have vacancies moving from the region of high chemical potential to the region of low chemical potential. So this migration of vacancies from a region of high chemical potential to the region of low chemical potential, again going back to our fundamental understanding of the Fick's law, is fundamentally governed by the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies. So for one-dimensional case, it is written as something like this. So this is what the gradient looks like. So what we have introduced is, because of the non-uniformity of the stress distribution within the material, you have a gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies, and because of the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies, you have vacancy moving from a region of high chemical potential to a region of low chemical potential. This migration of vacancies, because of the difference in the chemical potential, might favor the growth of the cavities. So if the cavities are present in this path, wherein you have the, so let me get distinct. So if you have the cavities that are present in this path, and you have vacancies that are moving, so let me use green, so vacancies that are moving from here to here due to the difference in the chemical potential, then it ultimately favors the growth of the cavities. So therefore, what we have is the cavities, or the growth of the cavities, is governed by the difference in the chemical potential of the vacancies that is introduced by the stress. So the non-uniformity of the stress distribution introduces a difference in the number of vacancies in different regions. This introduces a gradient in chemical potential of the vacancies. This gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancy ultimately leads to the growth of the cavity. So the definite expression that is similar to that of the Fick's law, that dictates the growth of the cavities, is expressed as this. So this migration, or the flux, is proportional to the gradient. So this is the gradient term. This term here, it refers to the gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies, and this is largely governed by the stress, because it is the stress that brings about the non-uniform density of the vacancy in the material. Now the constant of proportionality is usually the diffusivity, and we are largely confined to the grain boundary diffusivity because we are considering the diffusion of vacancies along the grain boundary. So it is written as this. This is mu, chemical potential of vacancies, and it is dependent on stress. So now what we have is the diffusivity governing, or the grain boundary diffusivity along with the gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies governing the flux of the vacancy that enables the growth of the supercritical or stable cavity. Now it is important to note that this gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies is brought about by the stress. Now it is possible for us to have a simplified expression for the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies that is caused by stress, and this is expressed as this. So this is nothing but the product of stress and the atomic volume of the vacancies. So what we have done is we have arrived at a simplified expression that quantifies the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies that is introduced by the stress, and this is nothing but the product of stress that brings about the gradient and the molecular volume or the molar volume of the vacancies. The reason we introduce the molar volume here is because once you have sufficient amount of vacancies that move into the cavities grow, and depending on how much of the volume of vacancies introduced, accordingly the cavities will grow, and that is the reason why we introduce the molar volume of the vacancy here. And since it is difficult for us to quantify the molar volume of vacancies, and the vacancies in a crystalline material are defined as the region wherein there should be an actual atom that of the matrix should be present. So therefore it is expressed as the product of stress and the molar volume of the matrix atom, because vacancy is nothing but an empty space wherein the matrix atom should be present, or rather solute atom should be present, and since it occupies the position of the matrix atom or the solute atom, its volume is assumed to be equal to that of the matrix of solute atoms, and therefore it is possible for us to replace the atomic volume of the vacancies with respect to, or replace atomic volume of the vacancies with the atomic volume of the atom it replaces. And therefore what you have is a simplified expression for the gradient in the chemical potential that is brought about by the non-uniform distribution of the stress, and this we have expressed it as the product of stress and the atomic volume of the atom that the vacancy replaces. So before moving further, let me just qualify the stress that is involved here. So these are normal stresses, and it is the normal stress that is largely involved in the formation and the growth of cavities, and it is primarily through the migration or governing the migration of vacancies. So what we essentially have is an expression for the gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies that allows for the migration of vacancies towards the cavities that help it grow or help these cavities grow, and this gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies is expressed as the product of the amount of stress and the atomic volume of the vacancies. Now the stress, again we qualify that, or this stress is largely the normal stress. We don't consider, or the shear stress doesn't play much of a role in the migration of vacancies or in the nucleation of vacancies that ultimately leads to the growth of cavities through its absorption. Now this is one factor that introduces the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies. So there is another factor that also introduces the gradient in the chemical potential, not alone in vacancies but also in any component that is associated with the material, and that factor is the curvature. Now if you could recollect your fundamental understanding of physical metallurgy, in few concepts of the physical metallurgy, particularly coarsening, that is asphalt ripening, you would observe that depending on the curvature, the equilibrium concentration between two phases it changes, and therefore you have a migration of atoms from the region of high curvature to the region of low curvature. So what you would essentially have is, even the curvature introduces a difference in the chemical potential of certain components, and because of this difference in the chemical potential of the components, there will be a diffusion of the components from a region of high chemical potential to the region of low chemical potential. So ultimately the curvature also influences the chemical potential of the material. Now in the case of stress, the way stress influences the chemical potential is by altering the number of vacancies that are present. So when you have tensile stress in a region, there will be an increased amount of vacancies when compared to the region wherein compressive stress is imposed. However, in case of curvature, the equilibrium concentration of the vacancies is altered. When you consider a region of high curvature when to a region of very low curvature, a flat region to that of the curved region, the equilibrium concentration of the vacancies is varied because of the curvature. So if you could relate it to, say for instance, a binary system with one solute or one independent component, the equilibrium composition of this component in that alloy will be disturbed or altered by the curvature, and this disturbance leads to the introduction of a gradient in the chemical potential, and this gradient ultimately leads to the migration of the atoms. Now this happens in a binary system, and this is why you have, when you have two spheroids that are present in a binary system, the larger spheroid grows at the expense of the smaller one. Now if you take the same principle and apply it here, you have the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies being influenced by the curvature. So this curvature is represented by R bar, which is the mean radius of curvature. Mean radius of curvature. So in addition to the stress, what we have is the curvature of the cavities. It also governs the gradient in the chemical potential that dictates the migration of the vacancies. So when you consider a cavity, the cavities they form in a different shape, and this different shape means you have different curvatures. So with difference in the curvature, what you would have is the difference in the equilibrium composition of vacancies. So when you have the difference in the concentration of vacancies, then you have a gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies. So similar to the stress, you have the curvature through the mean radius of curvature introducing a gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies, and this is expressed as again you have this term here, that is the atomic volume of the vacancy or the atomic volume of the atom the vacancy replaces, and we have this because when you have a considerable amount of vacancies moving into the cavity or moving away from the cavity, the size of the cavity decreases, the amount of the size the cavity decreases or increases depends on the volume of the vacancy or the volume of the atom it replaces, and this is introduced by, or this is governed by, the atomic volume of the vacancies, which is nothing but the atomic volume of the atom it replaces. So what we now have is, we saw the growth of a cavity is governed by the migration of vacancy towards it. The migration of vacancies in turn is governed by the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies. So when there is a gradient in the chemical potential, when you have a region of high chemical potential of vacancy and the region of low chemical potential of vacancies, or to put it simply, when you have a region of high concentration of vacancy and a low concentration of vacancy, the atoms from the high concentration of vacancies move to the region of low concentration of vacancies. In case of stress, it is brought about by the non-uniform distribution of the stress. So you have tensile stress region wherein the number of vacancies are higher. When we have a low or compressive stress region wherein the concentration of vacancies are lower. So you have vacancies moving from the tensile region to the compressive region. And when you have a cavity in its path, then what you would observe is the growth of this cavity. Now, the stress is alone not the governing factor. In addition to the stress, we have the curvature of the cavity that also plays a role. So, because of this curvature, there can be a disparity in the concentration of vacancies. In the region of high curvature, there might be high concentration, or there will be high concentration of vacancies. In case of low curvature, there will be low concentration of vacancies, and because of this difference in the concentration of vacancies, there will be a difference of the gradient in the chemical potential that ultimately leads to the migration of vacancies from the region of high curvature to the region of low curvature. So both stress and curvature introduces a difference in the gradient in the chemical potential that ultimately contributes to the, or ultimately drives the migration of vacancies. However, often the influence of the stress, often the influence or the difference in the concentration of vacancies that is brought about by the stress favors the growth of the cavities. So this term here, it favors the growth of the cavities. So when you have the cavities, the cavities usually are formed in the path between the tensile and compressive region, and in this region, because of its location, this diffusion or the diffusion due to the stress or the migration of vacancies due to the stress, it favors the growth of the cavities. However, since the curvature is the feature of the cavities, the migration that is introduced by the curvature will not often favor the growth of the cavity. So let me repeat. The migration of the cavities due to the stress, it is confined to the overall system. And since the cavities are formed in a region that is between a tensile and a compressive region, or the tensile and the tensile load is acting, so to speak, in that case, the migration of the vacancies due to the difference in the stress favors the growth of the cavities. However, the curvature is something, a feature that is associated exclusively with the cavities. So therefore, when you have a curvature difference within the cavities, the migration of vacancies because of this curvature difference will not always favor the growth of the cavities. So therefore, the overall growth of the cavities is the interplay of the gradient introduced by the stress and the gradient of the vacancies introduced by the curvature. So it is the interplay of the gradient introduced by the stress and the gradient introduced by the curvature of the cavities. So whenever there is a balance, when the migration of the vacancies due to the gradient in the chemical potential introduced by the stress is equal to the migration of vacancies due to the gradient in the chemical potential because of the curvature of the cavities. So in this case, you will have a stable or a non-growing and non-shrinking cavity that is present. So we can use such a condition to define a criteria under which you can have a favorable gradient in the chemical potential. So what we have is, we have considered a condition wherein the gradient in the chemical potential vacancy introduced by the non-uniform distribution of the stress is equal to the gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies introduced by the difference in curvature. So we have considered such a condition here. Now the reason we have considered such a condition is because we want to arrive at a criteria in such a way that the combination of these two leads to the form or growth of the cavities. Now the gradient in the chemical potential because of the stress often favors the growth of the cavity. Because of the curvature, the gradient that is introduced because of the curvature is not so always. So we want to arrive at a criteria wherein the growth of the cavity is favored. So now when you substitute the simplified expression for the gradient in the chemical potential introduced by the stress, it is of this format, it is of this form, and the gradient in the chemical potential introduced by the curvature is of this form. And when you remove these constant, you end up with a relation something like this. Now we are not largely interested on the relation. This is r bar, the mean radius of curvature. We are not in principle interested in the relation, but we want to arrive at a criterion. And since it is the influence of the stress that favors the growth of the cavity, so when you have a criteria, that is when you have a condition wherein the influence of the stress or the gradient that is introduced by the stress is greater than the gradient that is introduced by the mean curvature, you would have a growth in cavity. So what we have essentially done is, we have essentially considered the driving force for the growth of the cavity. So for the for the growth of the cavity, you need migration of vacancies, and for the migration of vacancies, you need sufficient driving force, and this driving force is the gradient in the chemical potential. This gradient in the chemical potential can be brought about by stress and the curvature. Now when the gradient in the chemical potential is brought about by the stress, it usually favors the growth. In case of curvature, it usually shrinks the cavity. So when you have to have a condition wherein the growth is favored, this condition needs to be satisfied. That is, the gradient that is introduced by the stress should be greater than the gradient that is introduced by the curvature. And since we have such a simplified expression, we need to have the stress that is acting in a specific region, or stress that is governing the migration of the vacancies should be greater than this particular ratio here. And if this condition is satisfied, then you have the growth of the cavity. These terms here can be rearranged and can be written as this as well. Rather, meaning when you have a curvature or the mean curvature that is greater than this ratio here, then in this shape the cavity is allowed to grow. So here the growth of the cavity is governed by a criteria that is based on stress, and here the criteria is based on the shape of the cavity. For the definite shape and for a given amount of stress, you have a growth of this cavity. And this shape, we are largely, when we talk about the shape, we are largely considering the average mean curvature or the mean curvature that this shape renders. So this is the criteria that needs to be fulfilled for the growth of the cavities when you consider the chemical potential or the gradient in the chemical potential that is introduced by the stress and the curvature. Only if these conditions are satisfied, you would have the growth of the cavities. Now, if or considering that you have the combination of these two terms, the combination of stress and curvature influencing the migration of the vacancies, the overall expression for the flux of the vacancies that governs the growth or shrinkage of the cavities depending on the criterion here is expressed in this manner, which is minus dGB, that is the grain boundary diffusivity of the vacancies, and the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies due to the stress, and the gradient in the chemical potential of vacancies due to the curvature. So the combination of these two leads to the flux that govern the evolution or that govern the growth or shrinkage of the vacancies, or rather the cavities. Supposing when the role of curvature is dominant, then the direction of the flux is reversed, then what you would have is the shrinkage of the cavities. On the other hand, when the influence of the stress is higher, what you would have is the migration of the vacancies that facilitate the growth of the cavities. So the direction of the migration would facilitate the growth of the cavities. So if you want to consider the direction of the flux, so when the influence of the curvature is larger, when it is the curvature that governs the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies, then the vacancies migrate in this direction, that is along the grain boundary away from the cavities. However, when the gradient in the chemical potential that is brought about by the stress is larger, then the direction in which the vacancies migrate is of this form. They move towards the cavity and they ultimately increase the size of the cavities. So this is the interplay of the gradient in the chemical potential brought about by the stress and the curvature is cumulatively formulated for considering the evolution or the growth of the cavities. So the cavities can either grow or shrink depending on its shape and the stress that is experienced by the system. So when you have a region, or when the cavity is formed in the region wherein the stress is increasingly favors its growth more than its curvature, then you would have the growth of the cavity. However, if the shape of the cavity is in such a way that it is not energetically favored, or the gradient in the chemical potential favors the migration of vacancies away from the cavity, then your cavity is no longer favored, it shrinks and ultimately disappears. So for the growth of the cavity, you need to have the a favorable shape in the cavity, and the cavity should also be present in the favorable position, or to put it simply, the stress acting around the cavity should favor the migration of vacancy towards it through appropriate gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies, and the shape of the cavity should be in such a way that the curvature does not introduce a chemical potential that causes the movement away from the cavities. So to consolidate all the discussions that we had in this lecture, the growth of the cavity is governed by the gradient in the chemical potential of the vacancies. So this gradient in the chemical potential can be introduced by stress, or it can be introduced by the mean radius of the curvature of the cavities. Now when the influence of the stress is greater, you have a growth in the cavity. When the influence of the curvature is greater, largely you have the disappearance of the cavity. Now when the influence of the stress is greater, you have a gradient and chemical potential of vacancies that favors the migration towards the cavity, and that is the reason why you have a growth. However, when you have the gradient in the chemical potential due to the curvature, it favors a migration away from cavity, and that is the reason why in this condition your cavities will not grow but it will shrink. So the criteria for the growth of the cavity can be arrived or derived by comparing the gradient in the chemical potential introduced by stress and the curvature, and if you do so, you will end up with a criteria like this. So ultimately the growth of the cavity under a given condition of stress and temperature is governed by the stress that is locally acting around the cavity. So this is one factor that governs the growth of the cavity, that is the stress acting locally around the cavity and the curvature of the cavity. So these are the two factors that govern the growth of the cavity. The stress or the chemical potential introduced by the stress largely favors the growth of the cavity, whereas the curvature of the stress largely does not favor the growth of the cavity. So these are the factors that govern the overall growth of the cavities, and it is the curvature and the local stress distribution. So with this, I would like to wind this lecture up, and we will build on this understanding in the subsequent lectures. Goodbye.